Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devim Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vastachadeshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Oh, we're joined by His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj. Maharaj, I was just keeping the seat warm for you. So the floor is yours, please, by all means.
All right, then, as usual, I will begin by singing the Mangalacharana prayers and leading a short kirtan. And as usual, I request the participants on Zoom to put on your cameras so we can see your moon-like faces. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Savana Raghunatam Vitam Sam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Cha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Ashtatadeshatarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Shiva Guru Deva. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Satasri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Satasri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kunda Radha Kundagiri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samveta Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Can you bring my water? Hare Krishna. So thank you for joining us for the celebration of Jagannath Mishra's festival. In continuation of our celebration of the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead who descended in the age of Kali, the role of a devotee. He appeared on what we now call Gaur Purnima in the evening of the full moon day in the month of Falguna. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a baby, sometimes he would cry, and the elders would try to pacify him in different ways, as people do when a baby cries. They would try to comfort him, distract him, and please him, but nothing worked. Soon they discovered that if they chanted the holy name of Krishna, he would become peaceful and stop crying. So thereafter, whenever he cried, they would chant, and he would immediately become happy. His appearance inspired chanting, and his activities thereafter inspired more chanting. By his divine will, Krishna arranged for his associates from Goloka Vrindavan to come to earth to join him in his pastimes as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Some associates played the parts of elders, and they took birth before he did. Advaita Acharya and Haridas Thakur were elders, and they were friends with each other. In fact, Advaita Acharya is Mahavishnu, and Thakur Haridas is Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is a disciple and direct servant of Mahavishnu. So it is natural that they became close. And when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared on Gaur Purnima, they together danced in ecstasy. When the news spread that Sachi Mata had given birth to a baby boy, all sorts of respectable Brahmin gentlemen and ladies came with gifts and blessed the newborn child. This is what happened today. Today meaning the day after Gaur Purnima. Even the wives of the demigods came, disguised as the wives of Brahmins, and presented various gifts. Thus, the day after the Purnima, there was a great celebration at Jagannath Mishra's home. That day is observed today as the festival of Jagannath Mishra, or the feast of Jagannath Mishra, because to celebrate the birth of his son, he received many visitors and well-wishers and gave presentations to them all. And in the end, they all feasted. We shall read from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 13, the advent of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, beginning with the chapter summary. Quote, the 13th chapter of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita describes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. A learned Brahmin named Upendra Mishra, who resided in the district of Srihata, was the father of Jagannath Mishra, who came to Navadvip to study under the direction of Nilambar Chakravarti, and then settled there after marrying Nilambar Chakravarti's daughter, Sachi Devi. Sri Sachi Devi gave birth to 8 children, all daughters, who died one after another immediately after birth. After her 9th pregnancy, she gave birth to a son who was named Vishwarup. Then, in 1407 Saka era, AD 1486, on the full moon evening of the month of Falguna, during the constellation of Simha, Leo, on the horizon, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared as the son of Sri Sachi Devi and Jagannath Mishra. After hearing of the birth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, learned scholars and Brahmins, bringing many gifts, came to see the newly born baby. Nilambar Chakravarti, who was a great astrologer, immediately prepared a horoscope, and by astrological calculation, he saw that the child was a great personality. This chapter describes the symptoms of this great personality. So we can see the resemblance between the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and those of Lord Krishna. In Mathura, Krishna's parents, Vasudeva and Devaki, first had 6 sons, all of whom were killed by Kamsa. Their 7th child was Balaram, but by the arrangement of Yoga Maya, under Krishna's direction, Balaram was transferred from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini in Vrindavan. Thus, Devaki appeared to have had a miscarriage. The 8th child was Krishna, Vasudeva did not want Kamsa to kill Krishna or to try to kill Krishna. And by Yoga Maya's influence, Yoga Maya is the special potency of the Lord who facilitates his pastimes. All the guards in Kamsa's prison fell asleep, and all the locked doors opened. Vasudeva then carried baby Krishna across the Yamuna to Gokul. There he found that Yashoda had given birth to a baby girl. But Yashoda was so exhausted from the labor of childbirth that she didn't know if she had given birth to a son or a daughter. Vasudeva placed baby Krishna on Yashoda's bed, picked up her daughter, and carried her back to Kamsa's prison in Mathura. As soon as the baby girl was placed in the prison room with Vasudeva and Devaki, she began to cry. And Kamsa understood that Devaki had given birth to a daughter. Earlier, on the occasion of Devaki's wedding, Kamsa had heard a voice from the sky, Akashvani, that said that the eighth son of Devaki would kill him. The child was a girl, but Kamsa was such a demon, surrounded by such demonic advisors, that he thought, let me not take any chances. He snatched the baby to dash her on a rock and kill her, as he had killed the other 6 children. But she slipped from his hands and flew into the sky, manifesting her form as the goddess Durga, and said, you fool, the person who will kill you has already taken birth somewhere else. This is a striking statement. The person who will kill you has already taken birth elsewhere. Because from the account so far, Krishna had taken birth in Kamsa's prison in Kamsa. But Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, as quoted by Srila Prabhupada, cites evidence from within Srimad Bhagavatam and from other Puranas, such as the Harivamsa, that Yashoda actually gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. The girl was an expansion of Yoga Maya, and the boy was the original Krishna. When Vasudeva carried the Vasudeva Krishna to Gokul, the Vasudeva Krishna entered into the original Krishna, and Vasudeva carried the baby girl back to Mathura. Here in Chaitanya Lila, we find that Sachi Devi gave birth to 8 daughters, and that all of them died. Then finally, she gave birth to a son, Vishwarup. And at an early age, Vishwarup left home and took sannyas. So for all material purposes, we could say he was dead. Srila Prabhupada said that sannyas means civil death. The day on which Vishwarup took sannyas is called Vishwarup Mahotsav. And it is the same day on which Srila Prabhupada took sannyas some 400 years later. In any case, it was a great occasion that Sachi Devi had given birth to a boy. And all the devotees from the area, such as Advaitacharya and his wife Sita, and Srivas Thakur and his wife Malini, came and brought gifts and offered blessings to the new child. So now we shall read some verses and purports. Text 100, translation. Seeing the lunar eclipse and laughing, Both Advaita Acharya and Haridas Thakur immediately went to the bank of the Ganges and bathed in the Ganges in great jubilation. Taking advantage of the occasion of the lunar eclipse, Advaita Acharya, by his own mental strength, distributed various types of charity to Brahmanas. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is the custom of Hindus to give in charity to the poor as much as possible during the time of a lunar or solar eclipse. Advaita Acharya, therefore, taking advantage of the eclipse, distributed many varieties of charity to the Brahmanas. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a statement in the 10th canto, 3rd chapter, verse 11, that when Krishna took his birth, Vasudeva immediately took advantage of this moment, distributed 10,000 cows to the Brahmanas. It is customary among Hindus that at the time a child is born, especially a male child, the parents distribute great charity in jubilation. Advaita Acharya was actually interested in distributing charity because of Lord Chaitanya's birth at the time of the lunar eclipse. People could not understand, however, why Advaita Acharya was giving such a great variety of things in charity. He did so not because of the lunar eclipse, but because of the Lord's taking birth at that moment. He distributed charity exactly as Vasudeva did at the time of Lord Krishna's appearance. So we can see the parallels between Krishna Lila and Chaitanya Lila. Text 101. When he saw that the whole world was jubilant, Haridas Thakur, his mind astonished, directly and indirectly expressed himself to Advaita Acharya. Your dancing and distributing charity are very pleasing to me. I can understand that there is some special purpose in these actions. Text 102. Acharya Ratna, Chandrasekhar, and Srivas Thakur were overwhelmed with joy, and immediately they went to the bank of the Ganges to take a bath in the water of the Ganges. Their minds full of happiness, they chanted the Hare Krishna mantra and gave charity by mental strength. 103. In this way, all the devotees, wherever they were situated, in every city and every country, danced, performed Sankirtan, and gave charity by mental strength on the plea of the lunar eclipse, their minds overwhelmed with joy. All sorts of respectable Brahmin gentlemen and ladies, carrying plates filled with various gifts, came with their presentations, seeing the newborn child, whose form resembled natural glaring gold. All of them with happiness offered their blessings. So it's mentioned here that he had a golden complexion. In the Bengali, it is Sona Duty. And this is because Lord Chaitanya appeared with the mood and the complexion of Srimati Radharani. 105. Dressing themselves as the wives of Brahmins, all the celestial ladies, including the wives of Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Nrsingadev, King Indra, and Vashishta Muni, along with Ramba, the dancing girl of heaven, came there with varieties of gifts. So they're all devotees. Purport. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a newly born baby, he was visited by the neighboring ladies, most of whom were the wives of respectable Brahmanas. In the dress of Brahmanas' wives, celestial ladies, like the wives of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, also came to see the newborn child. Ordinary people saw them as neighborhood, respectable Brahmin ladies, but actually they were all celestial ladies dressed in that way. So Savitri is the wife of Lord Brahma. Gauri is the wife of Lord Shiva. Saraswati here, the Saraswati here mentioned, is mentioned as the wife of Lord Nrsingadev. And Sachi is the wife of King Indra. They all disguised themselves as Brahmin ladies, looking like ladies of the neighborhood, and came to offer respects to the newborn baby. 106. In outer space, all the demigods, including the inhabitants of Gandharvaloka, Siddhaloka, and Charnaloka, offered their prayers and danced with musical songs and the beating of drums. Similarly, in Navadvip, all the professional dancers, musicians, and blessers gathered together, dancing in great jubilation. Purport. As there are professional singers, dancers, and reciters of prayers in the heavenly planets, so in India, still there are professional dancers, givers of blessings, and singers, all of whom assemble together during householder ceremonies, especially marriages and birth ceremonies. These professional men earn their livelihood by taking charity on such occasions from the homes of the Hindus. Eunuchs also take advantage of such ceremonies to receive charity. That is their means of livelihood. Such men never become servants or engage themselves in agriculture or business occupations. They simply take charity from neighborhood friends to maintain themselves peacefully. The bhattas are a class of Brahmins who go to such ceremonies to offer blessings by composing poems with reference to the Vedic scriptures. So Vedic culture is very beautiful and highly elevated. Even now in India, the culture is there, though not as much as before. When I was in Bombay once, I visited an old friend, a very nice devotee, who is related to the Birlas. And it just so happened that there was an engagement ceremony in the Birla family from the mother's side. Sri Bridgerton Mota, who is a good friend of ours and of Srila Prabhupada's, had married Seth R.D. Birla's daughter, and their son's daughter was about to be engaged. So I went to the engagement reception, and there I met a bhajan singer named Purushottam Das Jalota. And I mentioned this in connection with the singers who assembled together during householder ceremonies. When I first went to India in 1970, he was very popular. He sang bhajans in aristocratic Hindus' homes and gave lessons in voice and harmonium. As he grew older, his son, as happens, became his apprentice and also began to sing bhajans and play harmonium. So we invited his son, who was relatively unknown then, to perform at our auditorium in Juhu. At the engagement reception, Purushottam approached me. He was about 87 and was wearing a traditional Hindu jacket and cap. After we spoke for some time, he made an indication and said, "Anup is there." And he tried to call him, but because his voice was not so loud, his son Anup could not hear. I said, "That's all right, I'll go and see him." I guess the father wanted me to bless and encourage his son. Anup remembered his first performance in the ISKCON auditorium. I usually didn't attend such performances, but somehow that evening, near the end of the performance, I felt drawn into the auditorium. I found a seat toward the back and sat down. The whole atmosphere had been surcharged. I can't explain it. And he had sung with such devotion that his words and voice had entered people's minds and hearts. It had been a very special performance. And the devotees had recorded it and produced an audio cassette that they would distribute on Sankirtan. And it had become a hit. Many people would come and ask for Anup Jalota's tape. When I met Anup at the reception, he remembered that night. He said that when he had entered the auditorium, he had not been sure whether or not he would pursue a career as a singer. He had prayed, "Lord Krishna, I am yours. Whatever you want, you can do. If you want me to pursue this career, you can make me a success. If you don't, that's all right. Whatever you wish." And he remarked that it was because of his performance in the ISKCON auditorium and the recording of it that he had become a success as a singer. I knew that was the case, but I didn't want to say it. But he knew it, and he said it, and it was true. That culture and that mood are increasingly becoming rare, that mood of devotion, of surrender, of dependence on the Lord, but they are still there. So now we return to this description of Jagannath Mishra's festival. Text 107. No one could understand who was coming and who was going, who was dancing and who was singing. Nor could they understand one another's language. Yet all unhappiness and lamentation were immediately dissipated, and people became all jubilant. Thus, Jagannath Mishra was also overwhelmed with joy. Chandrasekhar Acharya and Srivas Thakur both came to Jagannath Mishra and drew his attention in various ways. They performed the ritualistic ceremonies prescribed at the time of birth according to religious principles. Jagannath Mishra also gave varieties of charity. Whatever riches Jagannath Mishra offered in the form of gifts and presentations, and whatever he had in his house, he distributed among the Brahmins, professional singers, dancers, bhattas, bhattas means the professional blessers, and the poor. He honored them all by giving them riches in charity. The wife of Srivas Thakur, whose name was Malini, accompanied by the wife of Chandrasekhar, Acharya Ratna, and other ladies, came there in great happiness to worship the baby with paraphernalia such as vermilion, turmeric, oil, fused rice, bananas, and coconut. Purport. Vermilion, kai, fused rice, bananas, coconuts, and turmeric mixed with oil are all auspicious gifts for a ceremony. There is puffed rice, as there is puffed rice, I'm reading Prabhupada's report, as there is puffed rice, so there is another preparation of rice called kai, or fused rice, which along with bananas is taken as a very auspicious presentation. Also, turmeric mixed with oil and vermilion makes an auspicious ointment that is smeared over the body of a newborn baby or a person who is going to marry. These are all auspicious activities in family affairs. We see that 500 years ago at the birth of Lord Chaitanya, all these ceremonies were performed rigidly. But at present, such ritualistic performances hardly ever take place. Generally, a pregnant mother is sent to the hospital, and as soon as her child is born, he is washed with an antiseptic, and this concludes everything. So the parents and other elders did whatever they could to ensure the well-being of the child in all respects. They knew that the purpose of the child's life was to serve and please God, and that the child's success in all respects depended on the mercy of God and his devotees. Text 111. One day, shortly after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born, Advaitacharya's wife, Sita Devi, who was worshipable by the whole world, took her husband's permission and went to see that topmost child with all kinds of gifts and presentations. Purport. It appears that Advaitacharya had two different houses, one at Shantipur and one at Navadvip. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born, Advaita Acharya was residing not at his Navadvip house, but at his Shantipur house. Therefore, as formerly explained, text 99, from Advaita's old paternal house, Nijalaya in Shantipur, Sita came to Navadvip to present gifts to the newborn child, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. 112. She brought different kinds of golden ornaments, including armlets, necklaces, anklets, and bangles for the hands. There were also tiger nails set in gold, waist decorations of silk and lace, ornaments for the hands and legs, nicely printed silken saris, and a child's garment, also made of silk. Many other riches, including gold and silver coins, were also presented to the child. Purport. From the gifts presented by Sita Thakurani, Advaitacharya's wife, it appears that Advaitacharya at that time was a very rich man. Although Brahmins are not the rich men of society, Advaitacharya, being the leader of the Brahmins in Shantipur, was considerably well-to-do. Therefore, he presented many ornaments to the baby, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Kamalakanta Vishvasa's asking for 300 rupees from the king of Jagannath Puri, Maharaj Prataparudra, on the plea that Advaitacharya was in debt for that amount, indicates that such a rich man, who could present many valuable ornaments, saris, etc., thought it difficult to repay 300 rupees. Therefore, the value of a rupee at that time was many thousands of times what it is now. At present, no one feels difficulty over a debt of 300 rupees, nor can an ordinary man accumulate such valuable ornaments to present to a friend's son. Probably the value of 300 rupees at that time was equal to the present value of 30,000 rupees. And I would say the value of the 30,000 rupees mentioned in the purport is now probably 300,000 rupees or more. So there are many more nice descriptions of ladies who came to visit the residence of Sachi Mata and Jagannath Mishra to make presentations and give blessings to the newborn child. But I'll just comment on one point in the purport to text 117. Because of all the antiseptic effects of the neem tree, and because Lord Chaitanya was born underneath a neem tree, Sita Thakurani gave the Lord the name Nimai. Later in his youth, he was celebrated as Nimai Pandit. And in the neighborhood villages, he was called by that name, although his real name was Vishwambar. Now, Vishwambar, this is me speaking, Vishwambar means one who maintains the universe. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 9.7 describes how Lord Chaitanya appreciated the name. Prabhu kahi ame Vishwambara Namadari Nama Sarthaka Kaya Yadi Preme Vishwabari. Lord Chaitanya thought, my name is Vishwambar, one who maintains the entire universe. Its meaning will be actualized if I can fill the whole universe with love of Godhead. Text 118. On the day the mother and son bathed and left the maternity home, Sita Thakurani gave them all kinds of ornaments and garments, and then also honored Jagannath Mishra. Then Sita Thakurani, being honored by Mother Sachi Devi and Jagannath Mishra, was greatly happy within her mind, and thus she returned home. Purport. On the 5th day from the birth of a child, and also on the 9th day, the mother bathes either in the Ganges or in another sacred place. This is called Niskramana, or the ceremony of coming out of the maternity home. Nowadays, the maternity home is a hospital, but formerly in every respectable home, one room was set aside as a maternity home where children would take birth. And on the 9th day after the birth of a child, the mother would come into the regular rooms in the ceremony called Niskramana. Of the 10 purificatory processes, Niskramana is one. Formerly in Bengal, the higher castes observed 4 months after the birth of a child as a quarantine. At the end of the 4th month, the mother could see the sun rise. Later, the higher castes, namely the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, observed only 21 days as a quarantine, whereas the Sudras had to observe 30 days. For the sections of society known as Karta, Bhaja, and Satima, the mother of the child was immediately purified after the quarantine by the throwing of harinuta, small pieces of sweetmeat in Sankirtan. Sachi Devi and Jagannath Mishra with the newborn child were honored by Sita Thakurani. Similarly, while Sita Thakurani was returning home, she was also honored by Sachi Devi and Jagannath Mishra. This was the system in respectable families of Bengal. So our Srila Prabhupada was also born in a separate house under a jackfruit tree that belonged to his mother's parents. And one time, His Holiness Radhanath Swami and I visited that place in South Calcutta, saw the tree under which Srila Prabhupada was born, and visited the Radha Krishna temple that his mother frequented, imagining how she and the rest of the family must have prayed for the welfare of the new child, whom they named Abhay Charan, one who is fearless, having taken shelter at Lord Krishna's lotus feet. So, because of the time factor, I won't read all the verses in this elaborate description, but I will read one more, at least, and comment on it. This is text 121. After calculating the birth moment of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nilambar Chakravarti privately said to Jagannath Mishra that he saw all the different symptoms of a great personality in both the body and birth moment of the child. Thus he understood that in the future this child would deliver all three worlds. So my reflection here is that although Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had all the signs of a great personality, and was in fact the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his father, Jagannath Mishra, considered him to be his son. As a child, Lord Chaitanya was quite naughty, and Jagannath Mishra would often chide him and instruct him in proper behavior. One night, Jagannath Mishra had a dream in which a Brahmin angrily told him, "You do not know anything about your son. Because you think him to be your son, you rebuke and chastise him." Jagannath Mishra replied, "He may be a demigod, a mystic yogi, or a great saint. But whatever he may be, I know him only as my son, and it is my duty to teach him religion and morality. Otherwise, how will he learn? Even if he is Lord Narayan himself, it is the duty of the father to instruct the son." So even in his dreams, Jagannath Mishra was absorbed in the mellow of pure parental affection. In his youth, Lord Chaitanya asked an astrologer to tell him who he was in his past life. Through calculation and meditation, the astrologer saw the brilliantly effulgent form of the Lord as the resting place of the Vaikuntha planets. Struck with wonder, he said, "In your previous birth, you were the shelter of all creation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full of all opulence. And you are the same Personality of Godhead now." Lord Chaitanya smiled and said, "I think you do not know very clearly what I was. For I know that in my previous birth, I was a cowherd boy. I was born in a family of cowherd men and gave protection to the cows and calves. And because of these pious activities, I have now become the son of a Brahmin." 122. In this way, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, out of his causeless mercy, made his advent in the house of Sachi Devi. Lord Chaitanya is very merciful to anyone who hears the narration of his birth, and thus such a person attains the lotus feet of the Lord. So my dear devotees, I will read this again because this applies to you. In this way, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, out of his causeless mercy, made his advent in the house of Sachi Devi. Lord Chaitanya is very merciful to anyone who hears this narration of his birth, and thus such a person attains the lotus feet of the Lord. So, thank you very much for listening to this reading with comments on the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the celebration that took place the following day, which is called the Festival of Jagannath Mishra, or the Feast of Jagannath Mishra. And now, if there's time, I mean, I have taken more than an hour, but still, if there's time, we can take reflections or comments or questions from our esteemed devotees who have joined us on this auspicious occasion.
Thank you, Maharaj. A wonderful blessing, and it was double blessing. It came from your mouth, so we are definitely blessed. So, and you also talked before that the mood of the exalted devotees who are there. What should be our mood? How we pray to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to get that mercy?
Well, of course, as we know, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the mood and with the complexion of Srimati Radharani. And a prominent quality of Srimati Radharani is her compassion. In the Nectar of Devotion, there's a list of qualities of Krishna, and one of the qualities is compassionate. And the Nectar of Devotion gives the definition that one who cannot bear to see the suffering of another person is called compassionate. And Srila Prabhupada explains that although Krishna is compassionate, I mean, this is one of the qualities of Krishna, but his compassionate nature is represented by Srimati Radharani. And therefore devotees pray to Srimati Radharani for Krishna's compassion. So if we want to serve Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and I believe that's what you were asking, how we can serve Lord Chaitanya now. So one way, important way, is to be compassionate to others. A Vaishnava is described by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami as Paraduka Dukhi. Paraduka Dukhi means that he feels sorrow in the sorrow of others. And so he tries to relieve them of their sorrow and make them happy. And the way to do that is to give them Krishna consciousness, induce them to engage in devotional service. And as we say, chant and be happy. So I think that is a really good service to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And of course, we ourselves must be spiritually fit to help others. So, we should do what we know we have to do to be Krishna conscious, and then we can extend ourselves to others and share Krishna consciousness with them, like you are doing.
I'm doing through your mercy, Maharaj, and Guru Maharaj mercy. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments?
Maharaj, I have one question.
All right.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. Maharaj, my question is that this thing bothers me that people who are doing so much for the humanity, or people who are soldiers who are again protecting others and doing such big things, why do they not get the same, I mean, same results by doing it like we get as devotees? Because I feel what they are doing is very difficult, giving food, shelter to others, and maybe they're not devotees, but why do they not get the same benefication?
That's a good question. Srila Prabhupada gave a nice example that, in fact, I mentioned the Birlas in my talk, so Prabhupada used the example of the Birlas in his example, because they're the richest family in India. And so he gave the example that suppose Mr. Birla's son runs away from home and he's living on the footpath. You know, the context is he's living on the footpath and he's not dressed very nicely. He's not eating very well. So, as Prabhupada said, you know, you can give him some food to eat, but in a few hours he'll be hungry again. It's not a permanent solution. But if you say, oh, I know you, you're the son of, you know, such and such rich man, why don't you go home to your father and he will take care of you in all respects and all of your problems will be solved. So we are all, you know, children of Krishna. Somehow you could say we've run away from home and come into this material world and are suffering in so many ways. So yes, we can feed someone and do other charitable works, as you mentioned, but those are just temporary solutions at best. But if we remind people that, you know, you're a child of Krishna, and if you go back to Krishna, all of your problems will be solved permanently, and you'll live happily. That is a better service. And that's why people who engage in that welfare activity of bringing people to Krishna consciousness get a different result. But it's good that people are charitable, that, you know, it helps them a little bit. But the real benefit comes when they become Krishna conscious.
Thank you, Maharaj.
But we also give food, we give prasad.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel they are serving others in a way, right? And not really satisfying themselves by doing it. Because sometimes even when we worship, it's for ourselves and really not for others. So sometimes I feel they are more selfless in ways.
I see that Lalita Devi is smiling upon hearing this comment. I wonder if Lalita Devi would like to share her thoughts with us on this topic. Lalita Devi is a medical doctor, by the way. That's her occupation.
Nothing more than what you said, Guru Maharaj. I would like to be united back with my family and would like everyone else to be united back with their families.
You mean Krishna's family?
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Okay, that's nice. Good.
And as you said, there can't be more that can be done to make me happy at any level than to bring me back to where I belong.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Maharaj, may I ask a question?
Yes.
What about the churches? They do a lot of charity work. They go feed and donate clothing and shelter. But will that be considered Krishna conscious or Christ conscious, whatever?
Well, it would depend on the context. The main concern that Srila Prabhupada had about Christians was that they don't obey the commandment, thou shalt not kill, because they eat flesh, which means they kill animals and eat flesh. So that is very, well, it's like a vicious activity. It's very harmful and hurtful, not only to the creatures whose bodies they eat, but to themselves in their own spiritual development. Because you can't really progress spiritually when you eat meat. In fact, at the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadev Goswami says that the subject of Krishna, in the beginning of the 10th canto, the subject of Krishna is so attractive that it can attract all sorts of people, except for Pashugana, which means those who kill animals. That's a very big stumbling block in spiritual progress. So, yeah. And the Bhagavad Gita says, Pandita Samadarshana, that the learned sage sees with equal vision, the gentle and learned Brahman, the dog, the cow, the dog eater, the elephant. So we should be good to all creatures, not just human beings. Yeah. And yeah, even in the Bible, it says that one cannot go home by good works alone. One must please the Lord and get the Lord's mercy. And the best service is to bring people back to Him. Again, like a father, if his son runs away from home, and you see the son and you feed him or give him some clothing, that's good. But that will not please the father as much as if you bring the father back home. So that's the best service we can offer. That's our main effort. So Radha Charan Prabhu has his hand raised.
Guru Maharaj, please accept my obeisances. When you were reading all these verses and the purport, it was so pleasing and so sweet. And the answer what you gave to Pragya or whom was really perfect. But I want to share one of my realization when we started preaching. One very socially reputed person asked us one question, whether these Muslims or the Christians or others who are following any path would not get Vaikuntha and get liberated. So we could not answer him properly at that time. Later on, we realized this answer what you gave as myself Prabhupada. And additionally, I wanted to ask him whether the person who is doing all these philanthropist activities really want to get associated with the Lord, whether he want to attain Vaikuntha or not. whether his desire is there, and whether he knows about this thing, whether how Lord's kingdom is there, and whether he understands the significance, or still he feels like those who are martyrs. Shaheed ko kya kehte hain? Martyrs. Those who have dedicated their life for the saving the country, are they willing to go back to God? They want to attain and serve God, or love
Yeah.
God, or follow God, or they feel what they are doing is better. As this Mataji also asked, that they are doing selfless, but how they are really selfless completely, and whether they are in a mood to please the Supreme Lord, like this. So this is our realization. They don't want, actually, they don't know how can they go to, when I don't know the place where I want to go, how can I reach the place also. So this is what we realize later on. And additionally, the answer, this is the unparalleled answer, that one who is son of a king, the best help is to bring him back to his father. Thank you.
Well said. Well said.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, just another comment like what Prabhu said. It also just reminds me the Bhagavad Gita, the charity in the mode of goodness, charity in the mode of passion, charity in the mode of ignorance. So people do charity, but they don't realize how the charity should be done or where the charity should be given. I mean, we do the charity, but at the same time, it is done with the proper Krishna consciousness. We feed people, but we preach Krishna Prasad. We open schools, but we teach Krishna consciousness. So basically, all the things that people are trying to do, different things, some of the things we also do, but in the right perspective. I think that probably the consciousness and the ultimate goal is the real difference.
Yes. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandvat Pranam. A very sweet reading, Maharaj. It's always very sweet when you speak. One thing I also want to add, as Prabhupada says in Bhagavad Gita, that compassion is always appreciated, but compassion should be for the soul, not for the body. So whatever we do, whatever charity we see in the world, whatever sacrifice we see in the world, it is on the basis of body only, up to the bodily platform. So compassion and sacrifice is always appreciated. But as Prabhupada said, when you go to, save a person and you come with the person's kurta, the person is dying and you came with the kurta only. So the direction of the compassion is very important. The direction of sacrifice is very important, as Prabhupada says. So I think this can...
Yeah, that's very appropriate. The example that a man is drowning and a hero goes out, swims out into the ocean to save the drowning man, and he comes back with the shirt and pants and leaves the man to drown. Yeah, the body stated in the Bhagavad is just like clothing for the soul. Perfect, perfect. So Heidi?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, Heidi Mansour is from Iran. She's in Iran.
Yes. And Sai Mataji is here.
Oh,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yes, I am staying with Hedy. I came here for Guru Punim, and you mentioned about giving. We can, for giving charity, we can distribute prasadam. And as you know, and you reminded us before, that this is what Prabhupada advised for Iran, especially for distributing prasadam. So I just wanted to tell you that Hedy, she is very active in this way. She distributes prasadam regularly, and for Guru Punim especially, we distributed to distribute prasadam to almost 400 people for Guru Punim.
Wonderful. Jai,
Yes.
jai. Wonderful.
And she, we distributed among neighbors, family, friends, as well as some rough sleepers in Hamadan. She lives now in Hamadan. Mosque. There is a mosque near Hedi's house. We distributed among the mosque goers there as well. And she, not only that, she engages people for service, her family, her friends, and also some people come, to help. She pays them, but she still engages them in the service.
Oh, good. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Actually, all of them by mercy, by Lord's mercy, and by your mercy, actually. And I think it's completely, we are just instruments, and it's invisible without any mercy.
It's
Yeah,
impossible.
it's not possible without mercy, actually.
Yes. Well, it's a combination. That combination is mentioned in the Damodar Lila when Mother Yashoda was trying to bind Krishna and she could not because the rope was always 2 inches, 2 fingers short. And then the Bhagavatam mentions 2 words, Parishram and Krishna Kripa. By these 2, that when Krishna saw Mother Yashoda's hard labor, Parishram, he gave his mercy. And our acharyas comment that the 2 fingers, the width of 1 finger can be covered by Parishram, by our own endeavor, and the other will be covered by Krishna Kripa, by Krishna's mercy. So I agree with you. Without mercy, nothing is possible. But you're also making your effort, and that is what makes it complete.
Yeah, thank you. Haribo.
Haribol. So there, I see 2 more, Sita Thakurani and Lalita Devi. Maybe Sita Thakurani first because we haven't heard from her.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, while reading CC Chaitanya Charitamrita, I see that devotees are following Vedic religious principles. We see today ladies are following Vedic religious principles, Advaita Acharya performing Shadi ceremony. But I don't understand, sometimes I have stopped following our Vedic rituals like Deepavali Pujan, Shraddha ceremony, we don't know who to feed. Smarta Brahmanas, we don't think we should feed them. So, shall we continue following Deepavali Pujan and all, which are Vedic rituals?
The what puja?
Diwali, which is very important function in our family.
Oh, Diwali.
Right. But it's like a Karma Kanda. We are only worshipping a goddess Lakshmi without Lord Vishnu. So I have stopped doing it because it doesn't make sense. But I think our Vedic rituals are important. We should be following them.
Well, some, Anukulasya Sankalpa Pratikulyasya Varjanam. We should accept what's favorable and reject what's unfavorable. So, I don't think that Lakshmi Puja, worshipping Lakshmi without Narayan, is something that we would do. Diwali, of course, has its religious significance. It was the day on which Lord Ramachandra returned to Ayodhya. And it is also the day on which the Damodar Lila took place. that also took place on Diwali. So we can, observe Diwali in a way, in a spiritual way, especially, by kirtan and Krishna Katha. I heard from an authoritative source that the sweet shops in Bombay sell more sweets during the Diwali period than the whole rest of the year. So I don't know what the spiritual significance of it is, but it's good for the sweet shops. But of course, if we offer the sweets to Krishna and distribute prasad, that's welcome. Yeah. So I think the general rule, Kulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjanam, accept what's favorable and reject what's unfavorable. We don't have to follow everything. Lalita Devi, unmute yourself.
Guru Maharaj, I'm sorry I could not think of the response when you asked me initially. Personally, I feel fully convinced when I read the first chapter of Watering the Seed about the question that the Mataji asked that I do not know. And whoever asks me that question, even if it's the newest kid to the temple, I read it to them and they feel fully satisfied by that answer. So I would recommend that she reads that chapter. And if she needs the book, I can mail it to her.
She has the book.
Thank you so much. I'll read it again. I've read it once, but yeah.
It is very appropriate and relevant to your question.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Mataji, so much.
Are there any other questions or comments? Well, if not, we can end with Vaishnava Pranam.
Thank you, Maharaj. Once more, I will wait for next first Monday of the month.
Fourth Monday. Is that what you said?
Fourth Monday. Sorry, Maharaj. I was going to mess it up again. But it has been blessing, Maharaj.
Patience.
Fourth Monday, yes, Maharaj.
Let's offer respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees, who fulfill the desires of and are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls.
नमो नमः हरे कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण महाराज जी दंडवत प्रणाम
जय स्वामी की जय
महाराज की जय श्री गौरंग महाप्रभु की जय
जय
की
गुरु महाराज जय